Okay. What's going on, guys? Upset City here. Different type of video today. This is going to be a video, maybe a series, trying to get inside the mind of championship level D1 coaches. I want to go into player distro, how to approach game plans, depth charts, recruiting strategy, and most importantly, how to build championship level teams. Whatever the coach is willing to open the doors on, I'm going to try and pick their brain on it a little bit. Our first guest ever interviewing a five-time national champion, three-time national champion at Colorado State in the packed IBA Mountain West Conference, the head of the IBA Street Journal, and one of the most unique coaches I've chatted with, Mr. Data himself. Trail, what's going on?
What's going on, man? Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to be the first of hopefully many in a long series.
Yeah, right. Uh, you're in one world, so it's always interesting. Like, I don't realize how good a coach is because I've only played in like Tark and Knight primarily for D1. It's always interesting that like you have these other great coaches that you just never really cross by. And then when you started sharing more and more of the data and stuff that you collect, is when you and I started chatting more through Discord.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like it's obviously a lot of people in HD are data nerds, but sometimes you find, you know, some people among that group that are even more into it, and I'm always happy to share and kind of talk about what I'm seeing. That's one of the first people that I ever reached out to was Gillespie, and then eventually Old Resorter, guys that just, really like the data side. So
Right,
always
right,
happy to
right.
share.
It's funny. I have this. I told you about how I have this script, but like I never follow it. And here's why I don't follow it because like to your point, you're saying how there's some data guys, and then there's some guys who like this is a basketball game, and there's other coaches who are like, no, this is a numbers game, and it's like finding that mix. But you can have success either way. But you've had success going with like the numbers route. I want to talk about your Colorado State team. Okay.
That's it.
Let's jump right into it. Okay, so fresh off of a national championship. So let's see right here. This is recording, right? Yeah, national championship. Had a dominant season. Let's talk about strengths and weaknesses. What did you feel like were the strengths of your team? What did you feel like were the weaknesses of the team?
Yeah, I think strengths, just depth. Like when you have like really 10 studs and then a freshman that was well-rounded off the bench. Gordon Baker there is the one that really didn't play. He's just a red shirt
Yeah.
that I may or may not keep. But um, but yeah, other than that, just like as you can see, I guess I never look at total ratings. But like I use my own formulas for this, but just like 10 studs and then a nice well-rounded guy off the bench. I think that from the beginning, um, I knew with the stamina we had and the depth we had that we would be able to go press. Last time I like the first time I went press 4 seasons ago with Colorado State, I was kind of like hemming and hawing the whole season, and eventually um, an exchange with Old Resorter kind of pushed me to go all in on press. This time I had way less to debate on there. Just like the depth we had, there's really nowhere to attack us
Hmm.
defensively. Um, and it was just, we had stamina in the right places, I would say too. Like,
Yeah. You stacked it well. Like where you lacked a little stamina, the backups had a little bit more, and vice
right,
versa. It felt like
exactly.
it was pretty well balanced in that regard.
Yep.
Uh, what were the weaknesses?
Biggest weak spot to start the season, obviously because we run zone most seasons,
We're
our
gonna get into
IQs
that.
were, yeah. Well, our IQs were a little low to start the season, and so um, knowing going in that I had the depth to run press and just being kind of set on that, even when we were running a little bit of half court press to start the season just to hit promises for my freshman, I was in almost all of my defensive IQ minutes were on press from the very
Okay.
start. So I was able to address that a little bit, but the other biggest weakness that I had to hide really to the very end, and then I was kind of continuously shuffling around my lineup to cover was just lack of point guard depth. We only had two guards with passing above 60.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Um, so that was like, and I really, these are my two best guards as well. So I
Hmm.
wanted them both in the starting lineup. Um, but yeah, I had to kind of keep shuffling things around to figure out how to hide that.
Right. It's interesting. Like your team, like Christensen's a stud, right? Like 90 athleticism, 90 speed, We're looking at 100 for perimeter ball handling. You're looking at somebody and 87 looking at somebody who can shoot the shit out of the ball. Like he's kind of
Yeah.
crazy at scoring. But then he also fills this thing of like now you just have another guy in your lineup who lacks a little bit of passing.
Yep.
Were you worried about going into like a press team at all?
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we did fine against press in the early season. But we were like against UCLA, who was a really solid pressing team early in the season. And we held our own there. Like turnovers were fairly limited in that one. But I still at that point had Christensen at the two, and I was using Bennett to back up the one.
Brewer,
Um,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So I had my two good pass guys get playing 100% of the minutes at the one. And then just as the season went on, I I felt like I needed a while Christensen is an amazing 3-point shooter, he brings absolutely no scoring versatility.
Right.
And I felt like I wanted a guy that could do both to make it a little bit less predictable game planning wise.
That's interesting. Okay, so you're like, if you're looking at Brewer, Brewer's awesome. I'm hoping this is it's just showing when I open up like all your
Yeah, I
individual
think you have to
guys.
open it as a tab. Yeah, you might have to get a tab
Oh, I didn't even
otherwise.
think about that here. I'm like opening up plans. Okay, right here, and then Brewer and Bennett. Like Brewer is a phenomenal scorer. As I'm speaking strictly from like the perimeter, like speed is awesome, athleticism.
Yep.
What are the? Okay, so interested what you think, just because like you collect all this information. Typically, so when I was talking to Gillespie years ago, he was saying, the big three, it's speed, perimeter, and ball handling. That's good. And then obviously stamina. Those three are what's going to comprise like your three-point shooting. So he's like, say it's like a 1 to 2 to 1 ratio or something along those lines. And then I don't know if you know, there was a Q&A like I don't know, like 2, 3 years ago.
Yep.
And somebody asked, what makes a good 3-point shooter? And they said, speed, perimeter, and ball handling determine your ability to take the shot.
Mm.
Athleticism, perimeter, and ball handling are your ability to make the shot. Do
Yeah.
you feel like that's about right? Or do you feel like, because like it's always been the common like community perspective is speed, perimeter, and ball handling to make the shot
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical, honestly.
on
Obviously it's hard
what
to
they said or what the community
yeah,
thinks?
on what they said. I obviously I mean I assume they said that for a reason and I feel like it's probably part of the formula, but I've just consistently seen that like just even and I even think ball handling is maybe a little bit overrated in this. I think ball handling can help reduce turnovers when you're trying to like force a lot of distribution to a
Hmm.
player. But I really think with just like I've had guys, some of my top 3-point shooters in Colorado State history, and we've had a lot of really good ones. Like some of the top, I think we have six of the top 25 in IBA D1 history. Um,
Okay.
yeah, which is a fun. I always send this
Little like
stuff to
humble
my
brag. I like that.
it's, I mean, we've had some studs. You'll see, like yeah, these are
Like
numbers.
these
I
guys
guess these,
here.
yeah, all five of those guys, and the sixth guy is probably maybe on the edge, are, in the record books. And a
These are
few
all
of
your
them
guys
didn't have,
lately. Okay.
so
Keep going.
solid
Sorry.
ball handling, but I think like a couple of them didn't have amazing ball handling. Most of these guys
So
are, I guess, pretty
82,
solid. 82, Brown was, he was a solid
91.
one. It's solid. You see like higher athleticism, less. Um, Another 82,
Yeah, I mean,
78.
even 82, you can argue is not like when you start to get into that higher level of D1, you need to start looking at like, 80, I mean, not that 80 is bad, but like 80, 82 range, you start wanting to more, you're really trying to kick up those numbers. So, I mean, he's not even a great ball. I mean, I guess as a guard skill, he's not elite. 70,
Yeah. And I've just seen
70.
this archetype. Yeah, 73. Like I just don't think, I think speed and perimeter are just by far what I look for.
Okay, interesting. So you had this plan of staggering your stamina and you had the weakness you felt your weakness was IQ. You felt like by the national tournament you were pretty solid in your IQs. And it did look like
Yeah.
your IQs were pretty solid by the national tournament. I mean, you were at
Yeah.
let's see, triangle. Yeah, most of your juniors and seniors were A's, A minuses, and A pluses. Press, your young guys were there, but A minus and above for everyone else.
Yeah.
Like that's not bad.
No.
Uh, what do you feel like? Do you feel? So I've had discussions with people about how strong that A plus IQ is. I mean, these guys are A minus and they seem to be doing pretty well. Do you feel like IQ is maybe a little bit like, I don't want to say overrated, but maybe by the community overrated?
I feel like there's a bit of like I've seen floating around like just like having those A pluses and just the importance of that. But I, is really the difference from A to A plus any different than the difference from A minus to A? Um, I I think if it is, it's a very marginal difference. Like I don't see any reason why it's like an exponential growth at A plus. Obviously, that's kind of how prestige value works, but there's really no other place in the game where there's like a function like that. So I assume it's pretty linear. And if that's the case, like the diminishing returns on, the amount of practice time you have to put in to get your guys consistently there or like in the high A pluses, I think in press there's an argument for it being more valuable just in terms of reducing fouls. But um, yeah, I don't feel like I've seen, and so one of the other coaches in the conference, Z Medlin, he's gone zone rather in situations where he has absolutely no IQs in it and performed fine just due to like issues with depth on his team, going up against up tempo teams. And that was kind of a light bulb moment to me of like, oh wow, if he can perform, he didn't do it this season, but
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say
um,
I didn't see that when I was looking through the games the other day.
yeah, he hasn't done it this season, but I saw in the past, this was like years ago, with a team that had no zone IQs. And that was a waking up call for me of like, hey, like really what IQs are most valuable for on defense. Obviously there's a performance impact, but I think a big part of it is just limiting fouls. So in press, it's probably a little bit more important.
And press is where that linear almost becomes exponential because if foul out turns into fatigue, next
It can
guy up and now
compound.
he's getting fatigue. Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
compounding and now maybe not exponential, but you're right, it's compounding in that it's like it's more and more detrimental the more that it happens.
Yeah.
Uh it's interesting. So also uh well, what other sets have you ran? What other sets do you run? Because I know you have this one team. Are you running? Have you ran flex motion? Anything else
Yeah, it's
offensively?
funny. I feel like man is the most common defensive scheme by far, but I have run almost no man to man.
Okay.
Yeah,
What about the
my
other offenses? Flex and motion.
yeah, motion is the only other one that I think maybe I had like I did an NC State team, which was my alma mater, in Wooden, I think it was. I think it was Wooden, maybe Allen. And I think I ran flex there, but it's been mostly try like I took it on triangle as soon as I took over the CSU team. I think out of that it's been motion, mostly motion and triangle.
Okay.
Never fast break.
Maybe okay, so when I do rebuilds, so like say I'm taking over a D2 rebuild or whatever, and D2 is obviously a little different because the conferences are so like so sim filled, but I will run triangle slowdown zone
Mhm.
because I'm just trying to get my young guys as many minutes as I can. Like I don't
Yep.
really care about. So I've always felt triangle was like the slowest offense. Maybe that's just my perspective. Triangle is like the slowest offense. Zone is the slowest defense. I mean, that's pretty inarguable with zone being like
Yeah.
and maybe not slowest is the best term for it, but like most stamina conserving.
Yep.
Uh, so I will run triangle zone and my teams don't like my offensively, we don't do poorly. Like my guys, I'll do zero distro, and my guys will actually shoot fairly well. And I'm like, I understand I'm going up against Sims, but also these are freshmen who are putting up like 12 points a game, and they're not like shooting 40%, 30% like you'd expect. They're like high 40s or even
Yeah.
like low 50s. And I'm like, well, damn, this guy, I'm not even practicing triangle, and I'm not even practicing zone, and we're not doing that bad defensively, considering nobody knows my sets. It's always
Yeah.
it is I could buy into that IQ being a little bit uh uh overrated by the community, or maybe in a past like maybe a couple of years ago there was definitely a lot more talk on like you really want that A plus, where it was
Yeah.
like people were like it's more important to just go 30 offense 30 defense and save your EEs, like don't let guys take that practice time away from them and just dump it into your IQs. So that's interesting,
Yeah.
like that you and I think that I want to get more into the zone press thing in a little bit.
Yeah.
uh let's talk about your distro. Are you able to share screen?
I should be.
Okay, let's see it. I don't know if it's going to record both of us or if I have to stop sharing for you to
You'd have to
record.
stop sharing.
I have
It
to stop
looks like.
sharing. Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
I just sent a request to share.
Allow. There you go.
Cool. Or you should see it up in a second. You
Okay.
see it now?
Yeah, yeah, I see it.
Cool.
Talk me through
Um,
it. And
Yeah, so this is
how much does it change? So I have, I guess, three questions. Take it however you want to break it down. Uh, Talk me through what you're seeing right now. How does it change game by game? And do you like at the start of I guess postseason when you start to get your actual lineups in, so end of regular season, postseason, whenever that is for you, do you like completely rehaul this? And I guess just talk to me through your thought process and everything.
yeah, for me, I really start like, and I have my sheet open here. Um, I really start by evaluating my team, like not necessarily strictly based on like the scoring rating in my sheet. Like I don't think this is perfect by any means because it
Okay.
also doesn't take into account like, hey, where is this player playing on the court? A guy with in an amazing post scorer, if you put him at point guard, it's not going to be he's not going to be as performant there um, as if he was at center, right?
Hmm.
So there's I've seen this a lot with like Derek Lohman in my sheet, he similar and maybe just slightly worse post scorer, an overall scorer compared to like Michael Carden and Aaron Diebold, my other power forwards, all very similar archetype, but because he's playing at the three, he's just not able to score as effectively.
Hmm.
Um, so like I start with this scoring rating as kind of my baseline. And then I basically look at player stats throughout the season. And so this is basically usage rate, and then like overall efficiency, including turnovers, and then true shooting percentage. So just based on the actual shots.
Okay.
And I just continually push around to basically feel out where's like the optimal range. So guys that are super efficient, I'll like push a little bit more distribution of them. So I would say this changes a lot. Especially in the early season, every night I review and update this. I save my baseline distribution. So like if I'm playing a man team, let's say I'll save to all defenses against like a 2-3, whatever my standard is, and then I'll come into man to man, adjust this a little bit and just save that locally, and then I can kind of revert back to whatever my baseline is.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. So I'm looking at it now. Okay. So you got Burr. How do you feel like scoring works best in triangle? So I'm just going to give you my perspective. And again, I have my only experience with triangle is rebuilding teams and putting it at
Yeah,
triangle. I remember reading years ago that triangle was very frustrating. I recall Gillespie telling me that he feels like his starting shooting guards or starting point guards shoot less efficient when they're at
mm,
compared where you expect in like flex and motion,
yeah,
and that frustration. And at the time, me kind of just getting into like trying to be good at the game rather than just like recruiting the same types of players. And I was like
yeah,
kind of just like I was in PT school just autopiloting, right? So
yeah,
I like just mimicked it. I like mimicked his opinion as if
yeah,
it was my own and was like, man, triangle sucks, triangle sucks. And then somebody was like, you can only have one wing and then like a forward and or you have to have two wings and a forward. And if something happens with stamina and now you have four guys in, you're less efficient. And I was like, that sounds like a headache. What is your
yeah.
perspective on running triangle?
Yeah. Oh, I would say generally the schemes on offense are somewhat of a mystery to me. I partially because I haven't really played anything besides triangle and motion. And
Hmm.
like vast majority, at least of my high D1 experiences with triangle, it's yeah, it's hard for me to say. I think that what I've seen, just like speaking from my experience at Colorado State, is you really need, and I think this especially goes when you're running the press, is just need at least 2 to 3 scorers in your starting lineup, and then two guys off the bench is, and I don't think too hard about how that has to look outside of there should be a little bit of balance there. Like you don't want only 3-point shooters. You need at least if all four of those guys shoot scorers, all of that those 4 to 5 scorers in between your starters and your bench, if they're all guards, that's totally fine. But they need to have a little bit of post scoring ability as well.
Okay.
My first championship at Colorado State, we probably had like 6 to 7 total points among our forwards and centers. Like 80 to 90% of the scoring on that team was and guards playing at small forward. So
Okay. Uh, how many ideally are you looking for? So, okay, so you're saying like you can have the scoring coming from wherever. So my next question was essentially like, how many shooters are you looking for? How many low post guys? But you're not really looking for. You're just looking to have like a nice variety.
Exactly, yeah. And I would
Okay.
say like this is probably the most level my distribution has been maybe of any team I've ever had at Colorado State.
Okay.
We every single player outside of um these bottom two on here, every single one of them had multiple double digit scoring games. Um, First time I've ever had that sort of balance on a team. Usually this looks much more like um, very heavily skewed towards like the top 5 to 6. You can see just based on like, this is 18.4 and 16 roughly for my top two scorers is much lower. Usually this is at like 25, maybe the second guy's at like 22. So this was fairly distributed just because we're running press, so we're using more of our bench, but also just because, just had depth of scoring.
hmm Yeah, I mean, you have who is it, Patton? Like for me, I look at Patton. He's a stud scorer, right? 100 athleticism, 46 speed, 78 low post. I know that's a lot. Yeah, I know that's not in the 90 range, but he still has that 36 perimeter to go with like the mid range. He still has ball handling. He still has stamina. Like he has all these things that would make him somebody for me that I'm thinking like is it a like a not an elite scorer, but somebody who I would think like let's put him at like 10 or 11. That's interesting
Yeah,
that because you're scoring like he doesn't go over Diebold. He doesn't go over Brewer. He doesn't go over Bennett. So then you have a starting lineup. You don't want to take too much away from those hyper elite
exactly.
guys, right? Like they're so good that it's almost like Patton kind of gets cut. I mean, he's not going to make the NBA because of you, I guess, right? Like he's gonna you ruined his stats.
I did. Yeah, and I'll zoom in on like where like the metrics I'm looking at. You can see like in an ideal world, this like your kind of points per possession and your true shooting percentage are fairly level. Patton, you can see like his,
hmm
obviously less usage. His efficiency was a little bit lower. So like that's why I'm not at one point in the season I had pushed the ball a little bit more to him, but then I like the stats just weren't backing it up. And also the thing with bigs is that they also get a lot like way more tip-ins than other players. And I just don't really consider that like as if I increase his distribution, like his tip-ins might go up a little bit because like a player might be more likely to tip in their own attempt. But like I just don't consider like offensive rebounds and putbacks a something I can scale with distribution. And I think that kind of boosts up their points per possession and their true shooting
So
percentage a little bit.
pause that for a second. You were just talking about the tip-ins. I was just, all right. So I swear to you, I don't live in the FAQ of Hoops Dynasty. Somebody asked me a question about double teams yesterday, so I went in there to go try and see if the answer was in the FAQ, and it says that tip-ins and fast break stuff is not considered in distro, and I didn't know that. I thought that that actually counted
Yeah. Um, oh, like it's not included in the calculation of
of your
um,
distro. So like the net, if a tip-in is done, it said that like uh well, I guess maybe I'm actually
like
misunderstanding that. Maybe it's just
like it's not
saying
included here or it's not influenced by this.
I don't believe it's influenced by your player distro, which I mean
Yeah.
that makes sense. But then the next shot that comes off, it's I guess that's still an odd. Okay, no, I guess what I'm saying makes it doesn't make sense, or what I initially thought made sense. All right,
I
I'm
guess
confusing myself.
the question is whether in the algorithm, if a player is the one to shoot the shot, do they have a higher likelihood of being the one that attempts the tip back? And it wouldn't be surprising to me if the creators just didn't necessarily work
Right.
that logic in, because sometimes guys shoot a 3-pointer and they do the put back, so it might just be totally random or position based. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
but
Last
anyway,
thing
yeah, go
what
ahead.
were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, like, regardless, I think that that's something that can inflate big guys' performance. I also one last note on Patton. I think that he's somebody with a skill set that, at least based on my limited experience, I think might do a little bit better in motion.
I
I
was just thinking
find,
that.
yeah, I find in triangle, like, I really want my guys to have higher low posts, and I think this holds guys back a little bit more than it does in motion.
So there's a coach, Tanner, who just came back from a retirement or a hiatus or whatever, and he's running strictly triangle zone on all his teams. And
Hmm.
he might watch this video. If he does, he's probably gonna be like, "Man, I heard you talking about me," because he's a little grump. He all he does is I actually have a meme going with him where he because he runs triangle zone, he doesn't value athleticism as much. But then those are the kind of guys I want in D2. So in D2, I'm looking to get like a guard with like 50 athleticism in my press. And
Yep.
but he's also looking for that in his triangle zone, or
Yeah.
because he wants those scoring and passing and all the other ratings. And I'm like, dude, I do not want you near me anymore in D1, D2. Like I hate to see you coming. When you're
Yeah.
the D1 near me, I hate it.
Right. Yeah.
Let's go. So you run triangle zone press. And I know coaches who have done that in the past because Pyman is a great example where he ran triangle zone and triangle press, or maybe he wasn't triangle, but either way, he was zone and press fully practiced. But the idea, I believe, for him was if I lose a bunch of EEs or I lose a bunch of rolls, I can go to zone, and if I win a bunch, then I'll just go to
Right.
press. Or if I'm at 10 man, I'll just go half court press, and I can kind of navigate it
Yep.
from there. But that's not what you're doing. You're doing every 3 seasons zone, and then your big run, which was this past season, is press.
Exactly. Yeah. So the reason that I kind of drifted towards that, and I guess I'll bring up my history page as like a kind of like the story of what drove me there. We had pretty at this point, so like up until really probably around this time, we had never spent a single minute. Maybe a season 150 was like the first minute I ever put into full court press. So like all this time we had been running zone and like clearly we had some success early on. The reason, and you mentioned this, I didn't say anything at the time, but the reason we went triangle zone was based on some forum posts I saw from Gillespie about how triangle was the best slowdown set. And I was like,
Hmm.
if I'm going to come into a C minus prestige program, and or C, and turn them around in a mid-major conference out in the West where there's not like a high abundance of recruits, I'm like, I am going to need the good guys I can bring in to go further. And so I ran this set because I wanted I wanted the talented guys I did have to go further. This championship we won with basically all of our distribution going to 4 players, but they were all
Okay.
playing, you know, high 20s or low 30s minutes. Um, the reason that and then we won another one. We had some dominant seasons. Like having that A plus prestige obviously helped us like um, really just take whoever we wanted essentially in that region. But then we kept on just coming up short, like so many Elite Eights, Final Fours, Sweet 16s. It just um, felt like even as the program, like I was getting better recruits more consistently, um, it's it was hard to like we weren't winning at the highest levels as consistently as I felt like we should be. And I think that's somewhere where triangle zone is really good for like fighting up and as a mid-major team that doesn't have the same depth of talent. But then when you do have that depth of talent, it just felt like I wasn't maximizing it. Like my bench guys just weren't who were really good players, just weren't playing many minutes. Um, and so that's really what inspired the switch to like, hey, let's dabble with press. Let's see if this can, you know, if we can this can unlock a higher sort of upper tier of performance.
Right. Okay. Interesting. So, from the old forums, right, where they used to be so active and you could learn so much. That's
Uh,
awesome. Uh, how would you say your depth chart changes, your distro changes when you're running zone versus when you're running, first of all, let's go over your depth chart.
yeah.
Let's see it. There you go.
So yeah, you can see what I'm talking about here. Where I'll zoom out a little bit more. Um, I started the season and it looked something more like more like this probably. Um, where Christensen was the one that was starting at the twos because he was my best scorer. I had to start this guy, my freshman, so he was in there. But essentially, um, though, like my synopsis of this is, and this is based on what essentially old resorters rules. Your best overall guard, in terms of speed, perimeter ball skills at the one. Obviously, passing is the most important, or point guard is the most important place to have your highest passing guy. So he's kind of a
Hmm.
stud there. And then at center, right, your highest athleticism, rebound, defense, block guy. That's who you want at that position. So I really like started by building around those, and I from there am just filling in with the right balance of sorry, my wife is trying to call me. I just gotta send her a text real quick.
You're fine.
Pulling up my
Yeah.
phone.
No, I actually had to just while you were talking at one point there, I was purchasing the Pro because I didn't realize how long we were going to chat for, and then I'm only allowed to record for like 20 minutes, so I just had to spend $15 for the Pro version
Oh,
of
yikes.
Zoom. But now we can record. Uh, yeah, no, I see what you're saying though. Like, and I could typically do the same, even if I'm motion man or I'm motion press. I'm typically getting my guard. I'm absolutely putting like, okay, so for your team, I would do the same thing. I'd be putting Brewer at the one, and then I'd be putting the unmistakable big man at the center spot. Typically, I also am looking though because sometimes when I'm in, especially man, uh, I may have a guy like let's see, Patton and Grimes. I would put Grimes at the two. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking at who is it? You have Diebold there. Yeah, I'd be putting Diebold at the two, but not because of the athleticism, rebounding, defense, shot blocking, like you were talking about, but at the two. Or I'm sorry, I say the two. I mean the four.
Or yeah,
Or Diebold, I like that speed at the four. I
right,
prefer having if I'm sacrificing blocks somewhere, I'd rather it be at the four. So it's not so much that I want the athleticism stuff there. I like the speed at the four. I like the less blocking if I have to have it at the four. I like the perimeter at the four. I like the ball handling, which he has it over
right,
Patton at the four, and I like the passing at the four. So like there's other. It's not generally it's the same mindset, but I
right.
like, especially in press, having that higher speed guy, and then in motion, having a higher ball handling guy at the four.
Yep,
Uh,
agreed with
yeah,
that.
and then I agree with what I liked Christensen off the bench. I was looking at that earlier, and I think that's a good idea. How does distro change, or how would you do a like right now? Say you were a zone team, how would you have ran your lineup? How much does it change?
Yeah, I don't think too much. Like obviously, I wouldn't be worrying about like who's fourth.
Right,
um, would be one of the main things. But as I thought about that, I don't know how much it would feel. And this is where like this is kind of what inspired the change. It would feel like I'm not getting the full value out of Christensen. He wouldn't if I was running zone, he just wouldn't be getting that like as many minutes off the bench. Johnson is a guy that is a great like fourth perimeter shooter. So like if we just sort this by perimeter, I guess third ranked by perimeter, but Bennett overall just scored a lot more, even though his rating's a little bit lower there. Um, he would just be the value to, in my opinion, of that like depth shooting guard. That's really our fourth scoring shooting guard here. Is teams would sometimes double my other guards. They try to like pack in the defense, double Brewer and Christensen because those are my best 3-point shooters. That just means that Johnson is getting a lot more free shots, and he had some good games. And same with Bennett. Like
right,
sneaky good perimeter scorer because of that. Um, even though he doesn't have great perimeter, he's got decent ball handling, speed, athleticism, so it kind of balanced it out.
right. And he has that perimeter, that low post too, which I always really like on a shooter.
Yep.
Uh, I mean, so you have Mang as your backup three. If you were running zone, would you have put Christensen potentially at backup two and three? Because Christensen can't play backup one, right? Like the 60 passing is just like not
Right.
going to cut it, especially if you're going up against like a press team. But would you have put potentially Christensen at backup three as well? Do you ever stagger backups like that?
I do. Yeah, I that's a good call. I probably would have stretched him a little bit further. If we were running 3-2, if we were running 2-3, with that rebounding and block, probably wouldn't have.
Okay, yeah, no, good
Yeah.
point, good point. Okay, let's get into for. I want to see how you got here. So typically, how are you approaching recruiting? Like are you recruiting are you targeting just the best guys in your area? Are you strategizing based on what your team will need a few years from now? Because at least for so I coached Colorado in Tark, and I think year 10 we won a title of a complete rebuild. Now Colorado's a little easier, has a little bit of higher baseline, but uh I felt like I was recruiting from like all different regions, and I felt like I was kind of just picking the guys I needed to fill my roster rather than just like the best local guys. I actually didn't really have great local guys ever, but I'm seeing for you like Utah, Arizona, California, Utah, Wyoming, Colorado, Montana, New Mexico. So you did stretch out a little bit as well as you recruited an international in Mang. Talk to
Yep.
me. I guess just go talk me through your recruiting process.
Yeah. Um, and yeah, some of my best, if you look at like top scorers all time, Zlotnick was an international, Hong was an international. So I always keep an eye out. And if there's an opportunity to, if I get on a guy early and there's not a lot of pressure there. It's just the thing I like about internationals is that you can they're hard to play catch up on, right? It's hard for a guy to sneak up on you in the late period because you've built
Hmm.
up like they can't just throw a bunch of visits at it, right? So that's kind of like I'll keep an eye on them. If I get an early lead and there's not as much pressure, um, I'll try to hold on, but it's not something I want to sink all my attention points into if I only have two or three scholarships. So usually those are guys I only go after when we have a lot of openings or if I can just get lucky and get them cheap. Really, my overall strategy is to keep local competitors guessing. I try not to be too predictable and like just immediately go for all the guys that are my top targets.
Hmm.
If I try to cast a bit of a wide net and just, by that second cycle, decide who am I going to try to unlock? How fast can I unlock them? I spend a lot of points, and I know we want to talk later about like the data side. I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out like exactly how many attention points it's going to be required to unlock a guy. So it's really, my overall strategy is to be patient, try not to be spread too thin because coaches are going to notice that. But at least with my top couple targets, make sure you're out early on at least one or two of those.
Yeah, I would agree. My approach is, and I've had this conversation with people in the Discord before where I'm like, what do you mean you go for backups? Like that doesn't even compute with me. And then I started realizing that my approach is I typically mark like two, depending on how many scholarships, maybe three guys that I'm like, these are the three who are going to be like the program guys. And then they're not backups, but then it's like, and then I want to surround them with this guy, this guy, this guy. So I don't identify those like those secondary targets as backups, but more so like those are the guys I need to fill out this roster. I do go a little bit more aggressive than I think you do, where I kind of just lay it on the table. It's funny, I started co-coaching in Smith with Tar Heels at Arizona, and I feel like for me, he was very passive, and he was probably looking at me like, "Dude, you're way too aggressive." And I'm like, "Now just drop like 60 or drop 80 AP. Make sure that everyone knows this is our guy." Because as an A plus, once you have it, nobody wants like you were just saying about catch ups. It's hard to catch up if you're already at 80 AP and your competitor starts at 20 or one. Like I
Right.
already have, so it feels psychologically like such a large lead that nobody wants. It doesn't seem like anyone wants. So it's interesting how you and I attack that a little differently. Uh,
Yeah.
how so? How are you managing promises? Because let's open up. Can you open up game one? I want to show everyone what I saw when I was going through your lineup. Are you running minutes on this team?
To start the season.
Yeah, because Holder's at 8 minutes, and I assumed that he was injured, so I went to go to the play-by-play. I was like, wait, he didn't get injured, and then I realized you run like. So, what did you offer him? How many minutes?
He got offered, I
20?
believe it would have been 25 actually. Yeah, 25.
How did you
So
hit
yeah,
it? Did he
um,
complain?
he did. So you'll see the story here. Um, and yeah, this is one of those areas that I think is a little bit, I take advantage of it, but
It's
it's
cheesy.
it's cheesy.
I do it too,
Um,
but it is
yeah.
cheesy.
So up until he complained after this game, and then after that, it ended up being taking 6 or 7 games because he fouled out one of them, so that one didn't count in
I
there.
didn't see the foul out. Okay,
Yeah. Um, so so yeah, I basically, promises, it's just in the competitive battle, promises are just too valuable and they're
right,
free. So it's hard for me to avoid them. This one, I had it originally at 20, and then the difference between 20 and 25 was um my opponent being between high and moderate, so it was well worth knocking them down by
right. So
just
you don't even have a roll. Like you
exactly
100% get the guy versus 75% at one. You make a 1% change, and you could knock somebody down 25%. Or whatever it is, 20% or whatever. Uh, you and I are the exact same in that. Like where, so did he complain about starts? Because it looked like he only got how many starts this season?
so yeah, this just I think this looks skewed because of our long national tournament run. He this is like towards the end. This is with I think 7 games left in, let's see. So UNLV on 8-12. Where would this have been in our season? Yeah, there's roughly one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So yeah, it was our eighth to last game. And is that right? Seventh to last game?
He didn't start
Uh,
UNLV, right?
he didn't. Yeah, so he didn't
One,
start the
two,
last.
three, four, five, six, seven. Yeah, seven.
Yeah,
Okay.
so he didn't start the last 7 games. So I mean, the the math behind this is a player won't complain. Like they need 6 games to for you to make up the promises.
I
So
knew
there,
it.
no,
I freaking knew it. I was talking to
yeah,
College Ball 7 as we were looking through your team, and I go, I'm wondering if there's amount of games that you can have left that he
yeah,
can't complain.
yeah. So it's gonna take him like at this point. I was actually safe further like earlier than this. I could have stopped starting him like here, because it would have taken him like four at this point in the season, like roughly 4 or 5 missed starts to start complaining. But by the time that I got to this game, he could no longer complain. So you need at least 6 games remaining for him to complain. So basically, I could have benched him 1, 2, 3, 4 games. He still would have been fine. I would have been hitting the 80% rule on starts, and then
And then at that point, there's no more time to complain.
right,
That is amazing. As we were looking at that, yeah, I was like, oh my God, there's totally a way that like, there has to be an X amount of games left. So I figured that, yeah, okay. Uh, well, interesting. I'm glad. And I always, so I don't break promises. I typically follow them, but also because I run so much man, at high D1, I don't really like, I'm going to hit their promises anyway. It's almost not even an issue. And because I also run man, if I'm a 10 man, that guy's still going to get minutes. So I actually prefer getting that development.
yeah,
Uh, where
exactly,
I feel like I can also coast a lot easier because similar to you, I'm assuming I my baseline game plan is fairly strong relative to a lot of coaches.
right,
So I feel like I can like, go through a lot of games with freshmen in the lineup and not have much of an issue. Or I had
yeah,
such a strong non-conference that I'm already such a high seed that I don't care if I lose a couple games along the way because I know my freshmen are going to be needed by the postseason.
yeah,
So it's a matter of preference. Like you are taking the initial small little hit on who is it, Holder? No, it was
yeah,
Loftman,
yeah,
who, Holder.
yeah. Holder.
Holder. You took the initial. So does minutes affect uh, progression? It does, right?
It definitely affects progression, but it doesn't boost work ethic as much as starts do. So like
Yeah.
I try never to violate a start because I messed with that and it's just really hard to recover. Like they will still end up with lower work ethic at the end of the season, whereas Holder, even after totally screwing him over and like on 25 minutes, he ended up averaging 13. So about half as many as I promised, his work ethic went up too. Um, when you violate starts, he would have ended up at least -2, if not more.
That's awesome. The ins and outs of the game. Again, I think it's something that eventually I would like for Bob and them to look at. But for now, like it is something. It's you're supposed to be playing competitive, and it's all
Yeah,
within the rules of the game. So if you're able to do it, why would you not do it? Yeah, I'm just a fan of making sure everyone's aware of those rules, and then
agreed.
also making sure they're aware of the the risk because I don't want them just losing their guys. Uh,
Exactly. It is risky. Like if he, whatever happens and like somehow he doesn't get the minutes in one of these games, like it's nerve-wracking. And I've screwed up. One of my biggest regrets, like earlier in in the team history was like during this time period, I blew a couple promises, and that's why I lost my A+ prestige, and that kind of like um cast it was a dark cast over this time period. There was a couple guys that I screwed this up but sometimes you got to make mistakes to learn the rules, right? So
you know what? And Gillespie used to always tell me, I finally had a team, like a really strong team at maybe it was LSU or maybe it was one of my Hampton teams. And he's like, oh, you should try this, this, and this. And I was like, it was my first like really good team. Like I was probably the national championship favorite that year. And I go, no, like I'm not, like I could toy that with that another season. He's like, your best seasons are the times that you want to toy around. Like that's when it's most interesting to toy around and find out
yep,
the rules of the game and push the boundaries.
yep,
Okay, so next topic. You are undoubtedly the biggest numbers guy I've met in the game, right next to Gillespie, I'd say. So again, I was kind of talking about earlier. If there's a scale of this is a basketball game to this is a numbers game, you're definitely leaning more towards that numbers game, where you can also have success as a basketball guy, right? Like Top Dog, I remember being very like, no, I don't hold people back because that's not real basketball. And College Ball 7, who's an IRL friend of mine, is very much so like, man, if I'm just gonna play a numbers game, I'm not playing a numbers game because I'm not gonna like I'm not gonna win at that. I'm gonna make this a basketball game because I know basketball. So you could have success in both in both ways. What are some of the most impactful or important numbers that you've gathered?
Yeah, and just before I answer this,
Yeah.
probably got like 10 minutes left.
Yeah, the rest should be pretty quick.
Cool. Um, so yeah, I'll run through this somewhat quickly. But yeah, I would say on the number side, like the stuff I dug into most early on was like the stuff that led into the sheet, which was just kind of just monitoring what like what actually made a good team. I spent a lot of time like refining the sheet and just looking at like actual like team performance versus their ratings, fine-tuning things, tweaking, looking at individual players. And that was kind of like the soft side of this, where it was really like intuition built on years of playing this to say like what makes a good scorer, like how does a team actually work. But the as years have gone on and like more recently, the stuff I would say the most impactful one has been understanding how positioning changes impacts your your opponent and like where they take their shots, how it affects offensive rebounding percentage. Um, and at this point, like I frankly I don't really pay much attention to the tempo or the 3 point frequency that's recommended in this sheet, but I usually stick to this or within very tight variants of this. Um, like the recommended positioning in the sheet, I treat as something that like I spend a lot of time to actually refine and understand. Yeah, like when you shift out your defense, how does that change your foul rate? How does that change all the different like functions of the game? Um, and that was all based on like thousands and thousands of box scores, probably tens of thousands.
Interesting. So if I were to get like a quick synopsis on that, what are you seeing? Because, and I'll give you a heads up. I asked a few people if you had to ask Trail a question about numbers, what it would be. And one of the questions, I won't get into them all because you're short on time, but was about plus minus and what your opinions were on like how it affects the game.
I think the most underrated aspect of plus minus is how, and maybe misunderstood, is how it impacts foul rate. Um, I think a lot of people assume that like, oh, um, I think that this was like actually in the like somewhere in like an FAQ or developer chat that if you pack in your defense, like then you actually end up getting more fouls. I think this was out there for a while,
Hmm.
but the more you pack in your defense, based on my analysis, the more teams settle for outside shots and you actually foul a lot less.
You
So
had talked to me about that. Yes, I was going to say. Keep going.
the biggest thing that plus minus swings is foul rate. Um, more than I think actually I should second that. It changes your opponent's 3 point attempt rate is the biggest impact, and then it's foul rate, and then it's 3 point make rate, and then offensive rebound percentage is actually the least. It's actually a pretty marginal impact on that. So you're really influencing with plus minus. Yeah, not just opponent shot selection, but as a derivative of that, how much you foul. So in press, I'm much more likely if I'm like on the border between a 0 and a -1, which was kind of where I was at heading into this championship game. I was like, I'm
Hmm.
going to go -1 because I know, and this is the matchup right here versus Oregon State. I know he forces a lot of fouls, even higher personal foul rate than my team. I don't want to get into foul trouble. I know he's going to go up tempo. So let me go -1 rather than 0 and reduce the foul rate a little bit.
And it worked. You only fouled 18 times. Is that normal? Oh, well, I
Yeah.
guess it would be a percentage anyway, so okay, just go based on 18, but it seems like it worked pretty well. You didn't have a ton
Yeah.
of fouls.
He went +1 and then the halftime adjustment moved him up to +3 and he ended up fouling a lot more even before the kind of like game fouls. He fouled more than we did.
Excellent. I love that. Interesting insight. I'm going to message you later about more questions about that. But
Totally.
one quick question, one more a little bit. It doesn't have to be super in depth, but quick question is, what are your favorite metrics that you've gathered? Is that it?
Yeah. Those are some of the like that's one of the big ones, but other stuff I use numbers for is calculating, and this is something I haven't released to the public, just because there's some concerns about like whether we're revealing too much, and I got some feedback from other users that it might be a little bit, yeah, it might be not so kosher to release some of this. But I've run a lot of analysis on big board projections and like exactly where a guy will land, where the cutoff points are between like power forward and small forward and center and things like that. Um, and I'd say that's one of the most impactful in this team, um, in this team that I built for the season because I held back a lot of guys early in their development because sometimes you develop guys early when they're off the big board, and then you don't realize later on that puts you in a position where you actually can't scale them back enough to get them out of big board danger. So I build my player development plans like from the start. Like when I sign them, when I'm recruiting them, even I'm thinking about how am I going to develop this player over 4 seasons? How do I maximize their value while keeping them out of big board danger?
I was just talking to CPA underscore Rod. I don't know if it's CPA Rod or whatever it is,
Yep.
but I was just telling him the same thing.
Coach.
He just started recruiting D1, and he's going. This is my first time dealing with D1. Like, what do I do? And I go, well, for X, Y, and Z, you're fine, but for these two guys, you need to. And this is what I got from Gillespie is what do you need your when they're freshmen? Probably not a lot because you don't want your freshmen contributing a lot. What do you need them to be as a sophomore? What do you need them to be as a junior? And what do then you're obviously a senior, you could push, you can crank it out and push them as much as you want. But those early years, you you can't, you can always get more rating. You can never really take back rating. So just be very careful about how you're approaching that.
Right. And
Last,
you see how guys just real quick on that, like you see how guys like Brewer, like how it's holding back his ball handling.
I noticed, yeah.
Um, Same with Bennett. These guys, Brewer, Bennett, and um, Patton were 110, 111, and 112 on the big board after last season, which was just like 2 positions below the cutoff for the last early entry player.
The last question I was going to ask anyways, was a perfect segue, was about the big board. Uh,
Yeah.
you had some incredible luck here, but just by, the eye test, right? Like 13 stayed, 26 stayed, 50 something stayed, or
70, yeah.
70 stayed. That's not luck. What did you do?
So yeah, the one rule of the game that every coach at D1 should know is that only 6 players between graduates and early entries can leave for the draft unless one of those players is was only signed for 1 year. So for any junior college or freshman players, you can only lose 6. If you sign like a 1 year transfer, that doesn't count towards this rule. But I had 6 guys on the roster, so these guys I knew they couldn't leave, and that's why I developed them as high as I wanted.
Yeah, I did that at Colorado when we won. And Tar and I are in Smith right now, and we were about to cut a kid, and I go, well, hold on, this kid actually has some underlying value. He's number 6 in the 6-man class. So our that's our freshman class. So when they're seniors, I go, that junior class that we just signed, that's monsters. We can push them as much as we want, and we won't lose anyone. So
Exactly.
it's a great strategy. I love it. Do you feel like you're going to be able to compete next year with just those three? Because I mean, you are losing a lot, but you are zone next season. You have three superstars in Diebold, Loftman, and whoever number 70 was,
Yeah, Michael Carden.
Carden. You feel like you
Yeah.
can compete again next season?
Yeah, I mean, we got 2 good point guards. We got the number 1 and number 3 ranked point guard so far in recruiting. So, and that was really where we had a gap. Like if you look at this year's team, that's 4 seniors, our top four, our 4 of our 5 guards on the roster. And this guy's, again, like a sort of took him on as a flyer because it was a free roster spot because I wasn't going to get any recruiting resources for that last spot anyway.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think that it's going to be tough with all freshman guards to, no JUCO coming in, so just freshmen. Like it's hard to win with that, but we will have a few stud forwards that are super versatile, with decent stamina as well. Diebold's going to be the best player, maybe probably a top 2 or 3 draft pick, and he has 90 stamina. So I'm going to ride him as much as I can. I,
And triangle, I feel like it's a little like, I mean, I don't want to say easier,
yeah,
but it's nice that you can at least heavy load three guys and at one time, and that could just be your three studs.
exactly.
Granted,
Yeah, and
they're leaving, but
we got 2 younger small forwards. Mang should score more next season. Holder's not really a scorer, but he's a good like glue guy, do a little bit of everything. So
mhm.
I think that like my goal for this team, given like the recruits we've already signed, would be like I think this is a Sweet 16 team, like maybe a chance for a deeper run, but probably not like a Final Four type team. If we can, we're recruiting a top guard that has a lot of perimeter, which would be like kind of the last missing piece. If we sign him, I could see us being like a Final Four caliber team.
That's awesome, man. Well, I'll be, tracking the journey next season
We'll
as
see.
I look to try and get into IBA. I'll try and figure out how I'm going to do that. Thank you so much for doing this episode. That was actually really cool. A lot
This
of
is great, man.
insight that you gave us. I hope everyone enjoys, and feel free everyone can message you, right? Ask some questions. I'm sure you answer them from time to time.
Totally. Yeah, happy to if you tag me on Discord or site mail, whatever's easiest.
Yeah, I've always messaged, like sometimes people ask number-based questions in the Discord, and I've tagged you, and somebody one time goes, why are you tagging him? I go, it's the bat signal. I'm like, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
It just he'll see it eventually, and he knows that he needs to come with the numbers over here.
Yeah. There's so
Uh,
many posts on there. So yeah, tagging is always easiest, tagging or direct mail.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. I'll chat with you in a little bit. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Later, brother.
Yeah.